What's going on, everybody? This is the Get the Bag podcast, and it's a very special episode. It's our 50th episode. It's a lot of
Oh
talking,
yeah,
a lot of awesome conversations, and we figured we should have a special episode where we have a
yeah,
special guest on. It's been a minute, but this is actually one of Tim's connections, and really excited to bring her on and discuss especially with everything going on in the market. Is being a real estate agent, there's definitely ways to work with wholesalers. A lot of times there's a tarnished kind of relationship that we
hmm
see where people want to hog deals and stuff. But so we'll have a really great conversation about that. But before we get into that, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, follow us on IG at Get the Bag Podcast, and feel free to tune in for any questions. But today's special guest is a businesswoman and empowerment speaker from Houston, Texas. Shout out H
yeah.
Town.
H
We,
Town.
we yeah we went visited last year, and it's one of the hottest places. Mosquitoes, I just have a bad relationship with them. So um
Me too.
but but this person, she's using her influence to teach students and kind of sharing experiences on how to strategically tackle their dreams, which we're all on the same page, same vibe with that. And her personal mission is to create spaces to restore the soul, the mind, and fund the future. And I just love that. And she's a master instructor who's impacted probably over 500 students, teaching wealth building, person development courses, in terms of mindset, goal setting, wealth building, leveraging key relationships. Oh, yeah. And she's a real estate agent as well. Let's welcome Chase Sloan to the Get the Bag podcast. What's going on, sis?
Hello, hello. Thank you guys so much for having me. Happy holidays.
Happy
Yeah, I know,
holidays.
right?
Welcome.
And happy 50th.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You know
Yes,
the
yes.
vibes over here, so
Right.
I'm glad
We
that
had to bring
we
the
have you
big
on.
dogs.
It shows consistency, so it's a milestone for sure.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Well, appreciate you taking the time to chat with us and kind of share with, your experience, not only as a real estate agent, but sort of the impact you're doing behind the scenes. It's deeper than that, right? It's deeper than like having financial freedom. It's kind of, educating on doing it the right way, integrity. So I love to unpack that. But tell us kind of some background about yourself. Like, were you always in real estate, or, how'd you kind of get started?
So thanks for asking that. No, I wasn't always in real estate. I got into real estate in my late 20s, so about 27 or so. I got my real estate license, and I tell the story all the time. It wasn't this deep euphoric, calling. I was working in retail and a bartender, and I got sick of it. Uh,
Mm,
Long short, and at the time, those shows like Million Dollar Listing, they were real popular. And I remember coming home, and a friend of mine was like, you could sell houses. It doesn't seem that hard. So I started taking my classes. So I was like, of course, it doesn't seem that hard. I sell polo shirts. I can sell houses. And I think I just got to a crossroads where my jobs were frustrating me. Like I said, I was bartending, so that means that I was working long nights every night, coming home 2 in the morning. I was working in retail, so the times when I would have rather been in my family, I was, in the mall folding T-shirts, hoping people would not come in 2 minutes before the door closed. And
Mm.
and then that was in about 2008 when the recession hit, and
mhm.
both of those jobs started cutting back. The cutting back hours, cutting back pay. And so I decided to jump headfirst into real estate, and this is where I've been for the last 12 years.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean,
Awesome.
so there's so many people who've kind of gone through that sort of experience who they were just sick of, tired of being sick and tired.
I was personally, I was just sick of being limited by what other people,
Mm,
thought.
Mm,
Like at no course of my own, my hours were getting cut or my pay was getting cut. I was a top seller, when I was working in retail, and then, something that was completely out of control was having an impact on my finances. And I just really look at it like, you know what, if I'm a winner, if I'm a fail, it's going to be off my own effort. And so
mm.
that really kind of And like I said, I wanted to be able to experience life during the daytime. I was doing all these things
Right.
where, by the time I came home, my friends were like, "Oh, we'll let you go," or people were leaving, So, especially me being in my 20s, that was a big deal, not being able to hang out the way I wanted. So
That's nice. That's nice. I love that. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of got into real estate I believe you got into it as an agent first. Is that correct?
yeah. A licensed agent. So I joined a real estate company, a really great one. I'm still with them now. And it's interesting because when I first got my license, like I said, I based all of this off of the television show. So
Right.
I don't want to be
Then we all.
people. They're all vindictive and manipulative. And so I went to this smaller brokerage, and really quickly I realized that I needed more training, or else I was going to get sued, because real estate is very expensive. And so I moved to the brokerage that I'm at now, and I just really dove into training and learning, because this wasn't something I share my story because I didn't come from like a background of real estate, right? Like my great grandpa wasn't a realtor, right? No, it
Right.
started with me. So there was a lot that I didn't know. I got into real estate and I didn't even have a house, right? So how are you gonna sell houses? You don't have a house. That whole limiting beliefs.
Right.
I just really gave back. And as I started learning, naturally I started teaching, because it's like, man, people need to know about this stuff, right? So it really came from, and then even with my personal mission of creating spaces, it really just came from a heart of wanting us to get it, wanting us to, I was working 3 jobs to get by. And then all of a sudden I was being exposed into an industry where people were living really big lives, right? Living lives by design. And on top of that, they were building wealth in a way that I wasn't talking about it normally with my friends. And so every year it just kind of compounded and it started evolving. It went from just being a salesperson to an investor to a flipper to, even a connector, a wholesaler, right? So every year it's kind of just gone deeper and deeper into what it means to be a woman of real estate.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a few women on here, just kind of sharing their experiences of navigating the real estate space. And obviously there's a wealth gap in general for women, but especially in real estate, when you talk about like brokerages or just even developers, investors, there's still a huge gap there. And it's like, what can we do as women to empower and really change the mindset of other women? And it's really just kind of showing that it's, hey, just a regular person like me can go out there and do it. Like if I can do it, you can do it. And I do feel like there's like a new wave of women entrepreneurs that we're seeing popping up, especially in the real estate space, who are just inspired by women like you, or just in general, just people making a killing in real estate. Like obviously that helps the money, for sure does, but I think is building those spaces like you said. But tell us about those spaces. Like when did that start? Because you mentioned you kind of help students. Like when did that kind of partake in your journey?
So like I said, after I got my license, I mean, pretty quickly I started teaching and training, because I was raising up into leadership within the company. And so, as my business started to grow from a sales and production space, I'd be asked, well, hey, can you teach new agents this? And can you do this? In 2015, I joined the board of a nonprofit aligned with our company. And that's really where I was able to tap into my space of being able to give back to young adults. So long short, after I graduated in college and all of this stuff, I benefited from mentorship as a young athlete. I had that spirit to do the same thing. I was like, I'm gonna go back, teach young athletes. I had a mentor when I was in the 8th grade. I totally think it influenced my life. And that was my goal. Now my degree by trade is in psychology. So I thought it was going to be that route. I was going to be helping young adults, young children with, mental health. And real estate afforded me the opportunity to kind of merge passion and profession. And so those spaces I create, they are to advocate for mental health, by restoring the store and inspiring the mall and funding the future. And so what that looks like now is really one, giving grace that it's okay if you don't know, let's figure that out. I think what I've
Right.
learned in the
Mhm.
years that I've been giving back to students, and just 12 years I've been teaching, is that we don't always have someone tell us how to break down the goal. Like, everyone's like, what do you want to do in 5 years from now? And
Mhm.
whether you know the answer or not, it kind of stops there. The conversation stops there. It's not really, okay, and this is how you're going to do it. And oh, by the way,
Mhm.
talk about wealth, not in the spirit of a number that you much reached, but in a purpose that is fulfilled. And how can we fund your perfect life, which you would do normally, by not
Right.
having to work? And then that's where the wealth building comes in, right? So it's really hard to talk, but I think where we get backwards is it's really hard to talk about how much money you need if you don't know what you need it for.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
We flip that and we take it back, and it's like, well, before we start talking about how much money you need, what do you need it for? And then let's fund that. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
so
I love that. That's kind of a way we've kind of been introduced, or how we've been taught to think of it, is reverse engineer it. How,
Yeah.
like, what lifestyle do you imagine? Like, what lifestyle do you want to live? How
mhm,
much would it cost to
mhm.
fund that lifestyle? Or, imagine what house, like really envisioning that, and then just literally divide, okay, if I want this much money, I need to close this many deals or do this much, revenue sources, whatever the case may be. People, it's really simple. We just overcomplicate it, I think,
Yeah,
because,
simple, not
you
easy.
know, yeah, exactly. And, a lot of times people of color too, we've never really been equipped of like with these sort of resources. So kind of going into you talking to the students and really creating that spaces is really huge, because we weren't meant to know all this information, like, and because see that wave now, especially of entrepreneurs who really want that financial freedom. I think it's really key, and
Mhm.
what's inspired us to create this podcast too is, hey, we're learning at the same time. Like, we're no like high experts, we're getting there, but we want to have that space where people can, like, oh, I have a question about this. Oh, here's an episode that has exactly that. So it's just kind of coming in, and I always feel like we are a student, and to like always give back, even if we are beginners, in our own journey.
Absolutely. I think the best way to learn something is to teach it, and I think
Yeah.
one of the things, especially in our communities, and I'll just speak for that because that's what I'm a part of, is that,
Hmm.
when we're not around something a lot, it becomes, very complicated, right? It's like Thanksgiving, right?
Right.
You have
Mhm.
meals for
Yeah.
this time, and they've got the instructions in their hands, and the YouTube up, and the computer screen with the demonstration, because it's their first time. But
Right.
5 or 6 Thanksgivings from now, they'll be making it, taking naps, and not even thinking about it. They'll do it secondhand. And so that's where we've got to get when it comes to conversations about wealth building and money and real estate. It's not that it's complicated. It's just that for a lot of us, it's always our first conversation. And so
Right.
having the podcast and having the classes and having the mentors and the relationships, it allows it to where, oh, this just, oh, you got a question about that? Not a big deal. I'll show you how to do that.
Right.
You're not far off. You're not on the wrong track, right? It's that affirmation that it's okay if we fail. And I think that,
Mm.
especially as Black women and Black men, it's we're afraid to fail because failure can feel like so much.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a heavy feeling, right? And, I think, I think we take, a big burden, and sometimes, we have to get out of that cycle, and failure is a good thing instead of a bad thing because you can learn from it and
Yeah,
be better and be more successful. So I think,
Right.
you know,
absolutely.
you're taught, especially in sports, like, if you make a mistake, it's wrong, or, if you make a
It's life
mistake,
or
someone's
death.
gonna replace you. Yeah, so, it's kind of that mentality,
Yeah,
but, in real life, it's a great thing, it's a blessing because what you do is you learn from that, and then, you grow from that, and then you will, achieve more things by, the more failures that you have because you're learning more to be successful, so,
absolutely. Absolutely. When you lock
Love
in,
it.
it's a superpower. When
yeah.
you truly lock in and believe that, like, I either win or I learn. I'm a fail fast, fail forward, fail often. When you truly lock into that, you're like
Yeah.
unstoppable. You
Yeah,
stop.
I always believe if like you're making mistakes, that means you're taking action. You're actually
Mhm.
doing stuff. Because people who are afraid to make mistakes aren't taking those steps to if like I need to fail as much as possible because that means that I'm actually trying. I think what the problem is people don't try because they're again like you mentioned fear and there's all these factors. So we kind of embrace this like community or this space where it's like it's okay. I felt so many times and like hearing that out and having a community of like a support system to be like, hey, it's okay, it's not the end of the world, like
Yeah,
there's more deals, right? Like it's kind of not being so hard on yourselves and
Mhm.
celebrating those small wins and all that stuff. So I love
absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah. So okay, you've been in the game now for 12 years. And so you've just kind of been closing deals as a real estate agent. How have you kind of because you started like around 08, 09, you said?
Yeah, 2010, I was actually licensed. Yep.
Okay. So it was like right after like the huge crash and everything like that.
Mhm.
How is
Mhm.
that different to now? Like how have you adjusted? Obviously you've gained tons of experience, but what sort of strategies of or changes have you seen since then?
So I think everything just goes back to education. The biggest thing that I learned then coming in, when I got into real estate, people talk about this market, but I got into a market where people were having to bring money to the table. And a lot of
Mm,
that was because they were upside down in their homes. So I came in with a heart of, well, how do we keep this from happening? Right. That's where the
mm,
financial literacy came in. That's where the education
right.
came in. Because if you look at like the buyers that were impacted during that time, a lot of them didn't understand what was happening with their rates, what was going to happen. That's why
Mhm.
real estate is always a steady investment, right? The question is, how did you get into it? Right?
Mm,
Don't blame the real estate. Real estate did nothing, right? You got to blame the negotiation or the deal or knowledge, whatever it is. So, like I said, I wanted to really, approach it from that spirit. And that's the heart that I've always kept with it. And like, okay, look, it's not a bad time. Even now, it's not a bad time to buy real estate.
Mhm.
Probably one of the best times to buy real estate right now because there's options for negotiation, right? We didn't have that 2 years ago. So for me, the strategy has always just been education and solutions. I don't,
mm.
I'm kind of a numbers person. I'm not the one to walk through the house and point out the poodle hair. Look, I can't really speak to whatever else is going on here, but when it comes to numbers, I got you. I can negotiate on that. The
Mhm.
goal is just to um, I call my clients, my students, wealth builders. That's my goal, is to help you build
Mm,
wealth. I look at it like this isn't about how much homes I've sold, but if I would
Right.
take the number of homes that I've sold and then add that up by the number of equity and wealth that I've helped these families build,
mm,
that's
Mm.
the bigger picture, right? If I can say, man, I've added $1 billion worth of net worth to the Black community in Houston, that's a little bit more powerful to me than I help,
Yeah.
I sold a house this week. All right. It's
Yeah.
long term, it's visionary. So that's really where it's about.
I
Yeah, I
love
love
that.
that mindset. And I think that's really important to kind of have that shift, right? And, I think with my business, it's been more how can I help people or how can
Mhm.
I solve their issues, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of, I guess going back to when we met, like we met on social media, obviously, and I think it was TikTok, right? So,
Mhm.
and then I think you reached out because you had a question about wholesaling, or you can you kind of tell us, this? By the way, congratulations on your deal, your first wholesaling deal.
Thank you.
I just wanted to shout that out for one. Two, kind of walk us through that process for um, you getting the deal and then reaching out to me, and then your whole experience with that.
So, you mentioned a little bit earlier, like there's always kind of been a rift between realtors and wholesalers, and
Right.
I just didn't understand it, right?
Right.
Because I'm kind of like a mama bear, I just kind of felt like these people don't care. They don't care. They're just what's happening. They don't
The
know.
vultures.
Yeah, vultures. They're taking your grandma's house. I mean, it was just the whole thing. And I heard, I think that if you look at life as a puzzle, right? Like you're putting together this picture, and it depends on how many pieces that you've got. So I had a client referred to me someone that needed their help. They were actually facing foreclosure. And so when they're facing foreclosure, right, we had like 3 weeks to get it done. Mind you, the house wasn't in
Mm-hmm.
the best of conditions in the sense of like it needed a bunch of repairs. So it wasn't your cookie cutter, let's put it on the market, get it under contract in 2 days. So
Right.
I started Googling and you guys gotta excuse me, I'm trying to charge my thing. I started thinking about like, okay, well, how can I hear him? And I see a friend and he makes a post about wholesaling. And it was just kind of like one of those clues that you hear. And I'm like, let me get on it. So I literally get on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm like, okay, so how does this work? Because he was in the spirit of wealth building, right? He's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is how we're going to shift and transition. It's not an either or, it's an and, right? And so I look at it. I think I messaged him, but whatever, it was late at night, so I didn't hear it. So I'm YouTubing wholesale, and I've got most of these pieces, right? You know, that first thing he's like, get you a cash buyers list, and you want to find the buyers, you want to join. Oh, I had all of that stuff, right? I had education on real estate, so I'm like, I think I have this deal. I meet with the owners, and I'm like, this is what I can do, right? This is, and I give them their options. I was like, I can buy it from you, or I can list it, but here are the pros and cons of both. And
Love it.
they're like, you know, the goal was just to help them avoid foreclosure, right? The goal was so that way this one moment in time didn't stick with them for 3 years. So everybody was on board. They were like, we'll just sell it to you. So I'm like, okay. So then I get home and I'm like, I think that's when I messaged Tim. And I'm like, hey, we're not like really good friends at this point. Right? We're just typical TikTok buddies.
Right.
Oh, I get up in the DMs. I'm like, hey, I have a question, right? Tim is incredibly gracious and kind. He's like, oh, I'll be happy to help, right? So I get on the phone and I'm kind of like, yeah, this is what it is, right? I've made a mess. I might be, I don't know what's going on. And so he walks me through it. And like I said, I had all of the pieces. It was just, now how do I bake this cake? Because I think I have everything. And so within 24 hours, I already had a buyer, an end buyer.
Yeah.
And I truly think that was just a result of the relationships that I've been able to nurture and maintain.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going through this process and I'm like, I mean, Tim's coaching me. He's like, help me out. I'm literally like reading the docs with him and stuff like that. And we get it in a contract and in 2 weeks we close, you know, and it's like a whole world opened up, right?
Yeah.
And I shared this with Tim, I kind of was stuck when I came across scenarios like that, when the house wasn't ideal for listing. You know, I was always looking through this one lens of
tunnel vision,
you know, and my mentors would say, you know, only list what you don't want to buy. But I never really knew what they were talking about because I'm thinking about, I mean, I want to buy all the houses I list. What are you talking about?
right?
And so it just was a combination of pieces coming together. And after that house, when we were able to help them, it just was like, I'm going to be able to help so many more people because not everybody fits into your cookie cutter 5-star home that looks
Absolutely.
pictures, and not everybody has the time. So I'm truly grateful because it's finding win-wins, right? It's just adding to the tool belt. It's like, okay, I can have multiple conversations with you now, depending on what you need, not what I do, right? We'll figure out what that looks like. And so that's the long short of it. But I mean, I called Tim. I was like, I did it. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was just so excited. And I'm so grateful because I just had never looked at solutions in that way.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to Tim. Tim's always ready for a helping hand. Always like, I've known him now for almost 2 years, and he's the biggest go-giver I know, and definitely inspiring to me to always also like be available to help. So definitely kudos to Tim in this very Thanksgiving Indian week. Grateful.
I appreciate y'all. No, I appreciate
yeah.
y'all. And no, I gotta give it to Chase because you definitely had your kind of ducks in a row already when you contacted me, right? You kind of got all the information from the seller. You had a really good kind of base of idea of how wholesaling works. You just needed the technical parts,
Mhm.
right? And
Right.
how to navigate some of the contracts, the technical terms, and just how you would do that with the buyer as well too. So it was pretty easy for me to kind of coach you through that, and you kind of really had it down already. It's just tweaking a few things, and I was super excited for you on closing the deal. And I know that we had discussed that you've been passing up these type of sellers for a long time,
Right.
just passing it on for referrals, or not even expecting a referral fee, just saying, hey, this person can help you. But now, like you said, it opens the door to helping these people even more, right? And helping their situation and giving them options, because the best thing we can do, either as agents or as real estate investors for these sellers, is provide them with multiple options. We
Yeah.
can't be a one trick pony,
Yeah.
and say, no, I'm sorry, we can't purchase your house, or I'm sorry, we can't list your house, or, so
Right.
we have to provide these solutions for sellers, especially now in this market. The more we can add to our tool belt, the more help we can provide with the sellers.
Absolutely. And I think that's really what we're moving into, just even, speaking to agents directly, is that we came out of a market where you didn't necessarily have to have skill. Let's just be honest, right? Because
Right.
the way that the market was moving so fast, you could just have a good mouthpiece,
Hmm.
might not even need a mouthpiece. And now we're shifting into where, the days of market are going up, right? Like
Yeah.
the interest rates are going up. The conversations are a lot different. Sellers aren't selling their home in 2 hours. It's not multiple offers. There are a lot of different things. And so
Hmm.
when you get to the core of what do they need, and right now, my client had a time sensitive issue that would
Right.
drastically change her life. So it was it was a benefit to find a solution that worked. And I think that, what I feel most about it now is that, it takes you more to conversation versus just like, hi, these are the 5 steps that I'm going to do. Just list and sell your home for the highest amount of
Right.
money. What all that talk goes. And so I think, as agents, we have a fiduciary responsibility to protect our clients, right? And that does
Hmm.
not
Right.
always mean what we want them to do. It truly comes from listening. And so I
Mm.
think that that's where it all connects, right? The training, the education, and just the relationships, is being able to
Hmm.
say, like, how can we do this in a way that works for you? However it works for you. If you want to list it, you want me to buy it, whatever it is.
Right. Now, my question to you, do you still think wholesalers are vultures?
Famous answer, it depends, right?
Right. Depends.
Depends on the wholesaler.
It goes to what you choose to invest in your craft, right? So if
Right.
somebody picks up this clip and then they're like, "Oh, I heard this hustle," and then they go out with the heart to hustle communities, they don't
Right.
think that they're vultures, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
that if you truly honor your craft and honor your community by saying, "Look, I'm beyond a wholesaler, right? I'm just here to help you find the solutions," then I think that there's a space from that. Me giving a blanket vulture statement to wholesalers would be the same way that people give a blanket statement about realtors and maybe
Hmm.
are saying,
Right. Right.
right?
There's
So
those bad apples. There's those ones that are, like
yeah,
you, making a difference or really trying to help people.
yeah, it definitely. I mean, I definitely owe the wholesaling community an apology because I just didn't get it. But I think in the world of social media and so many, sound bites of,
Hmm.
make $100,000 in 10 days, that can
Right.
that can sometimes spur the wrong intention. And so I think with the right intention, all of us have a place in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it also depends on the mentor that you have, and then the space that you want to get into when you're getting into real estate, right? And our mentor, Chris Jefferson, is really big on integrity, right? Being very intentional about being honest and upfront, and move with integrity in
Yeah.
your business, right? And I think, having several businesses before is very important, because no matter what business you do, you're going to have to network and present yourself
Right.
to other people. And some people will like you based on how you present yourself or how you do business, from people talking about how you do business, right? So I think that's a really big important, because as you said, people take it as a hustle and use it as a hustle mentality instead of a business mentality, and how you're going to grow this business to help other people, or to help, people that need help in real estate, let's say. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I remember I had a story. I had a client, and this is right after Hurricane Harvey in Houston. It was an older client, and she's married, and I met with her, and they were going to sell their home. This is before the storm happened, and they weren't ready yet. They kind of didn't like the price, and they wanted to get more. Well, fast forward, and her husband dies, and so then she
mm,
the house, and then fast forward, and Hurricane Harvey happens. So now the house,
Oof.
it's just gutted. It's completely everything. It's just a mess. And she calls me over, and she's like, "Can you help me?" And she's like, "I don't know if you remember me." Like, this is like me talking to my grandma, y'all. Okay, she's like, "Oh,"
Right.
mhm,
she's like, "I don't know if you remember me." I'm like, "Of course I remember you." So I go over there and I talk to her, and she was like, "I don't know what to do." And I signed this, and it's a wholesale contract, right? And it's like
Mhm.
mhm,
the amount, because they're older, so she kind of paid off the house, right? And the amount that she was offered, it was just heartbreakingly low. Whether or not it was fair or not, I can't say, because the house was destroyed. So
mhm,
Right.
that, but she had already signed the contract, so there was nothing I could do for her. And
Yeah.
it was just me reading it. I was like, I can't get you out of this. And that's really when I really kind of was like, "Ugh, wholesalers," because I was angry, because I was like, this is someone's grandmother. And so it just hurt. And then I didn't have that solution. Like, man, I could have helped her. All of the hindsight,
Mm.
mhm,
like 2020 type thing. And so I think, like, you go through that, and it's and it becomes a personal mission to keep people from having, right? I want to have the conversation first to save you from that bad conversation, right? Like,
Right.
mhm,
conversation not bad, it's the person behind it. So it's like, how can I help more people? How can I help the older community, right? 'Cause that's a lot of times, who's gonna be in that niche of it. So, it's
Right.
a responsibility.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate too. Like, it's the intentionality of how people approach it. You have social media everywhere. Everyone's an influencer, or they see the instant gratification of like, "Ooh, I can get this." And when you go with that intention, and it's heartbreaking for me too, is hearing those stories. And I think there's people are humans at the end of the day. And I think just offering solutions as a wholesaler, whether you're a wholesaler or agent, like you said, like you should be offering solutions, solving problems, not, all right, what's a check going to be? Like that never wants to
mhm,
be your first thought.
Yeah.
But for some people, who've never seen that kind of money, it's difficult to not think that way. They've never, they've been living in like a really tough circumstances for so long. And so the opportunity of like, oh, a $10,000 check, sometimes that kind of shades their integrity and how they approach it. And that's what's, I feel like, is hurting the wholesaling community, or people that are not educated, are just going in for themselves and not for others. And we're battling now. There's all these like restrictions and laws coming into place because of that lack of education. So I think education, all in front of like people, you can't just use Instagram reels as your education, and
Yeah.
then
right,
like maybe a 5-minute clip on YouTube. Like you really, and that goes back, I think, to your point, Tim, of like your mentor and who your coach is. It's the education, is taking the time to invest in yourself and really learning how we can help these people. Because until then, I mean, this sort of situation is going to continue happening. Um,
Yeah.
but
You gotta master your craft. I mean, if this is what you're
yeah,
Yeah, just what you're believing. Like when Tim said, it was a couple technical pieces, yet I mean, I invest very highly into understanding real estate at the highest levels. And then I teach it to make sure that I understand it, right? Because nothing's going to help you understand something more than somebody asking you a question. You say, oh, let me get back to you on that.
Right.
I think that what you said about social media and trying to learn in the comments or trying to learn in the reels, like that's just the beginning,
Right.
and even with people, and I think this goes for agents, investors, it doesn't really matter because people will say, oh, well, I tried that, you watch
Mhm.
a YouTube video for an hour and you're like, well, it didn't work for me. It was a gimmick. It was a scam.
Right.
Like you're talking about people that 5, 10, 12 years, 20 years, studying one thing.
Absolutely.
That way it can come together, right? Like, I mean, it's just important. And I think that we've gotten away from education, and we think
Right.
that one teacher. I've had hundreds, tons of mentors and coaches, teachers. People get mad because they have one teacher that didn't. I went to Tim's class and I ain't make $100,000. It's like, well, genius,
Right. What'd you do?
What did you do? He's not Gandhi. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
know, right?
to invest high level into what you say you want to do in life, right?
Yeah.
And that's when your purpose will really be called into question.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I think
What?
people
Oh,
go ahead.
go ahead, Tim. No, there's like a little.
No,
Go
no.
ahead.
It's okay.
Let the
No,
gentleman here.
no. It's okay. I was just gonna comment, like, some people, like, have their backs against the wall and, they're trying to make it, right? And they're trying to, they'll take a coaching course and it's not working for them. But I think also, I think, like you were saying, social media kind of it's bits and pieces, but it's the glamorous part. Like, they
Oh
always
yeah,
show the successes and all that, but the
the
real work
checks.
is, yeah, what the work that you have to put into it. And the grind that you have to do in regards to talking to a bunch of sellers, or how to, like, hone in your craft, because how you talk to people or how you present your options to people make a difference, right? And it doesn't come off robotic, or it comes off salesy, or just comes off naturally. And you need to find your voice within your business to help start conversations. And I think once you hone in on that craft, and everything else will kind of, they'll learn other aspects of your business, but once you hone into that, things just start to move forward for you.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Love it. So what do you recommend to agents? Because that we've been hearing this,
Hmm.
and Chris Jefferson, we've been in his mentorship, always says, like, if you're an agent, you should be taking advantage of this sort of knowledge. Like you can, and laying out options, especially now in this market, you want to give the seller as many options. Hey, if the price doesn't work, hey, maybe we can do creative finance. Maybe, okay,
Hmm.
that you don't want anything in payments. How about I list it? I'm also a realtor. We can go through that process. Or, hey, I just want to get it done. Hey, here's my cash offer. Like you have a solution almost for every objection. Like, hey, the price or the condition or the time. Like, what do you recommend for agents right now who really haven't, who don't really know much about wholesaling? Like, what are some tips? Or maybe that's something you're kind of creating a process now that your eyes have opened, of like, oh wow, this is real, especially after that, getting that
Now,
check.
jump into training. Like your first step should be to learn, and you have to learn before you earn, even if it was, and backing it up, you're saying like most people are like their back is against the wall. Real estate agents, investors, your back is against the wall. Things are tight.
Hmm.
Having a closing, you're thinking about going back to work. This I tried it and all that different type of stuff. If you can just believe enough that number one, slowing down is actually a solution, right? And if you can slow down
Mm.
enough to learn what you need to know, right? So after we successfully help that client, now I'm thinking to myself, like, this is a whole new level of mastery I've got to get into, right? So now,
Hmm.
like,
Right.
in a different level of learning, but from an investor's perspective, right? Like, okay, so now I
Right.
got this, But in order for me to repeat it, what else don't I know, right? It's always, you don't know what you don't know. So number one,
Right.
for agents, like your number one job is learning. You are a student, right? Like if they say it takes 10,000 hours to gain mastery, then this our podcast ain't gonna do it, right? That means that you've got to commit yourself to that. And number two, I think you got to figure out, like, what is my goal at the end of the day, right? So this also stemmed from a wealth building conversation. How can agents build additional wealth in their careers beyond just selling, right? So the bigger question that was being answered was about wealth building. So you've got to have a bigger, you have to have a bigger quest than I just want to be the number one salesperson, or I just want to be able to, list and sell your house. I mean, it's almost selfish, right? But from there, you get to figure out, like, how are other people doing it? This goes back to the conversations that you were saying. We just don't know what we don't know. Like, what do you mean I should only list what I want to buy, right? There was one sentence missing that changed 4 lives, if you think about it. The 2 people that were needed to sell their house, and then the end buyer, right? That's 4 lives that I can think of. And so I think, it's layered. What do agents need to do? Number one, you got to think about, what is your personal wealth plan looking like? And what's the math, reverse engineering behind that? Number two, what does your growth plan look like? Okay, based on where I want to be, what do I need to learn? So if you're saying, okay, well, this sounds good, Chase did it, I can do it, then cool. So what did Chase learn? How do I learn more about investing? What class do I need to invest in? What training? Do it like that. And 3, what relationships do I need to build? And sometimes mentorship simply looks like service. And I'm really big on this, because I think this is where agents get it, especially when I don't get it, especially when it comes to mentors. And everybody wants to be a mentor, but nobody wants to serve. And I don't understand that.
That's great.
A mentor if you don't have a servant heart, because otherwise you're going to have a coach that you need to pay. So one of the two's got to happen. You're either going to serve and learn, or you're going to pay and learn. Either one is fine.
Right.
That's
a gem right there.
I know, that's a gem.
But it comes back to, what are you going to do about it, right? Because the problem will solve itself. And I think a lot of times we get stuck up on the money because we don't have it, right? So of course you can't think of how to make $10,000 in 10 days because you've never done it before, right?
Right.
So
anything is possible.
Anything is possible when you realize that money is energy and you're paid to the value of a solution that you can bring. Anything is possible. I literally walked away from that thing and I was like, I could build a net worth of $50 million in 5 years if I keep this up. Because all of a sudden the key was unlocked, right?
Right.
And so it's not complicated. They teach us to exchange our time and our energy for money, and so that's why we get spent out. But we all have minds, and it's just what piece of information don't you have right now, right? And the only way you're going to get is if you serve.
Exactly.
I love that. I love the go-giver sort of mentality of just approaching everything on, like, how can I've no regard for what I need. What does this person need, and what value can I provide them? But I think you touched upon, like, really good points, because I think I saw somewhere where last quarter something like realtors lost money or were unable to close on as many deals. Therefore, they're suffering. And this is a strategy. And again, I've been hearing it. It's like, hey, if you're an agent and you haven't closed a deal yet, like, you should be learning. Like, you need to have that investor mindset, because then you can kind of offset it. Because, depending on the situation, okay, I have my agent hat on. Okay, let me put on my investor hat on. There's so much that you can add on to your own net worth. Like you mentioned, like, hey, I can make a lot of money doing this and helping people along the way. I think people just need to break out of that tunnel vision that maybe you were in and really expose and see what's happening, instead of looking in like an envious way of like, oh, these wholesalers, they're not even regulated. You can be like, well, how did they do that? Let me reach out to one of them, and have that open-mindedness instead of, feeling this whole like enclosement attitude about it.
Yeah, it's just coming from curiosity, and like I said, before I started even wholesaling, I had a mentor. I was an apprentice for 5 years. when I started flipping, right? So again, these are all pieces that are coming together, watching my mentor do these deals, not really understanding it all, right? Like the information's going over my head, but I'm still in the conversation, right? So it's like, you just, again, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. That's what I felt like was happening. I felt like I was getting myself ready in all of these different spaces, whether it was traditionally helping sellers, whether it was investing on our own behalf, or on this situation. And so as long as you keep showing up and coming from curiosity, I think that you will find the information that you need.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I love that. So I know that, throughout the years of real estate, what's kind of the next step for you? Like what's now that you've kind of unlocked one of the locks of real estate, we're constantly learning, and I know that I kind of unlocked like development and stuff like that, so I'm exploring that more going in 2023. So with a first development deal, what are some of your things that you're going to be doing in the future, and what's next for you?
So I'm glad you asked that, because that's definitely the season I'm in. So we'll always have a cornerstone of real estate in our business, and yet expanding the platform. So teaching more students, creating more cohorts, and creating more wealth builders. I want to be the Robin Hood of wealth. I want to be able to take what I've been blessed with, the conversations that I've been in, and take it to our community. That is what I'm most especially passionate about. I believe that strong communities come from ownership, and so my goal is to not just, number one, get us into ownership, right? That's first and foremost. I want
Right.
to own. I'm not a comma, not a semicolon, a period. I want us to own. I think we should all own. And once I get
100%.
you there, then my goal is to help you to build, right? So that's great. And we can do all the hashtags about generational wealth that we want. But if we're not building wealth, then it will go as soon as you die, right?
Right.
That's
hmm
what happens. And so expanding that platform and creating that ministry of wealth builders that really get, and I'm not even gonna say really want, right? I just want ready, able, and willing students. And let's get it, right? Like, it's not complicated,
hmm
it's simple, right? We just haven't been exposed to it. If I can expose us to more, then I'm happy about it. So you'll see a lot more of that. You'll see a lot more coaching, cohorts, and experiences.
That's
I
dope.
love
I
that.
love it. I love it.
Love
That's amazing. And I think we need it. I mean, it's just like, we're not born into the real estate. We've learned through kind of the traditional methods as we were growing up. At least for me,
Oh yeah.
I knew only one way to do it, and then now that I'm in my 40s, I'm just like it's opened up a whole new window, and I've been open about learning new things and learning more about the business, and each time I get into a deal kind of opens up another door or another experience, which that's why I'm kind of really passionate about it, because it's just the constant learning of the craft and honing in on that. And I think, you know, there's a lot of directions you need to go, but just, you where you want to go is where the doors will open for sure. So,
For sure.
Yeah,
We can focus
absolutely.
on that solution. And sometimes, in the comments, you guys know how the comments go.
yeah.
Well, not everybody's able to do that. You just,
Oh, there's always one.
I'm like, if we can start with the mindset first, and really
Mhm.
same page, that
Yeah.
I'm not any better than you guys on this call, and you guys aren't any better than anyone that's listening. If we can get past that and we get through the mindset, like, if it's happening, then it exists. So what don't I know? Why not?
Right.
Right? Everybody can do that. That's
Mhm.
the wealth building, is that you've got to have some, elitist background, and you don't, right? You got to have 2 headphones and a screen, right? And
Everybody has a screen.
everybody
Yeah.
has a screen,
Everybody's
right?
screaming, right?
And if you don't have a screen, then that means that you probably are even a better advantage. That means you have a relationship. So,
Mhm.
Mm.
I think that it's just, Tim, you said, in your 40s, I'm in my 40s, you know, I didn't have this figured out when I got my license in 20. I started this
Mhm.
saying that I was a a bartender at House of Blues, and I worked in retail. But I'll tell you
Mm.
this, and this is what one of my mentors told me. He said, when you worked in the retail, did you ever buy the clothes? I was like, heck yeah, I bought the clothes. I got a discount. He said, so why don't you do that for real estate?
Mm. I love that.
Mm. Mic
That's
drop.
awesome. Yep, there you go. I
Right?
love that.
So it just, and I never looked at it like that. When I worked in retail, my mindset was that I was building my wardrobe. I cared less about the job, right? They was giving me
Mhm.
10% off the clothes. I just, the whole check went back into the store because I saw
Right.
value in the wardrobe. Now,
And that's what they want. They want that.
huh?
They want that. They want your money to go back into the store.
Yeah, but
That's what they want.
it was a win-win, right? So someone
Yeah,
might
for
say, well,
sure.
you're taking advantage of your employees because they're spending all your money in your store. But they're like, yeah, but they're only paying 30% for the clothes, right? So it was a win-win in that scenario. It's the same way with real
Mhm.
estate, right? Someone might,
Absolutely.
I have first access. People say, Chase, let me know if you got a deal come across your table. Why would I let you know? I'm gonna let me know, right? I have access to people. People call me first, right? And
Right.
so why this goes back to like, man, I was passing over deals. I was passing
Mhm.
over opportunities because I just didn't know. But if I really treated real estate like every other job that I have had, then why am I not buying the inventory that I sell? It just, clicked all of a
It
sudden,
clicked.
you know.
Yeah. I
So
mean, this society has been built on consumerism. Like they want people to consume and not own, especially our generation. So many people are in debt, um, don't have even bought a house yet. Because again, the education isn't there. So having these sort of resources, they kind of venture out and help your communities to really gain that knowledge, that confidence to step out. And the biggest thing too that I noticed, you've been in the game for a minute, like over a decade. Like, guys, it takes time. Like, people just want that instant success. And for some people, they may get it because it just clicks, right? They just have the right systems, whatever. But people expect like overnight success, and that's not how it happens, guys. Like, it takes time to really build things out. Don't compare. Yeah, I can't compare myself to Tim, to you, Chase, like, or anybody else. That's not fair to myself. It's not fair to anyone to compare ourselves. I always say comparison's the thief of joy. And when you're starting out, you want to compare yourself to everybody, to make yourself feel better or worse. But this process takes time. So
yeah,
really start focusing on what's important to you, your business. Build slow, taking your time, building out your process, and every deal you get, reinvest it. Like we're
yeah,
saying, but the ultimate goal should be ownership. But I think that's the biggest thing is like people want to rush through it and have lack of patience. And
yeah.
so that you see after 6 months, after a year, people are like, "Oh, this is too hard. It's not meant for me. I'm going to go back to my 9 to 5." They just don't really have the grit to stick it out when it gets rough.
Yeah, real estate is hard. I tell
Yeah.
people, like, it's hard. Like, forget this podcast. It is hard. If you watch, it's hard. Hard.
Yeah.
It's hard today on November 23rd, whatever date it is. It's
Right.
hard
Right.
today. And my first year in real estate, I sold one house. The majority of my deals were leases, right? And the house that I sold was $70,000, right? This was my first year.
Mm.
I had someone tell me that, maybe this isn't for you. So I had all of these limiting beliefs as a young Black woman in the suburbs of Houston, like, oh, they're never gonna buy from me. All of these things, right? And it just happened slowly. I've had great years. I've had really bad years. I've gotten temporary jobs in between. I've worked overnight
Mhm.
just so that way I could work during the day and do real estate. Those don't always make the Instagram reels, right? You don't.
Right.
The
No.
only reason why I was able
That's what I'm
even to
saying.
stretch my mind and think about this leg of investing was because I was in a drought. I was in a rough spot, right? And I was just like, right? They say, what is it that necessity is the mother of all invention. So, right. So you've got to go through that pain to be able to even start thinking differently, because if you were comfortable, you'd be at brunch.
Mm.
Right.
Right.
So
Right.
it's not
Right.
going to be until you're frustrated with your business or your finances or your situation. Like I said, I was tired of coming home late at night, 2 or 3 in the morning. Every blessing that I feel like I've experienced has come from some kind of burden that was weighing on me at the time.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so for the people that are listening, especially going into the holidays, this is when you study. This is when you listen. This is when you create. This is when you write your Disney. This is when you grab
Mhm.
paper and your pen and you write down the things, even if you don't know how to get it, you get what you deserve in your imagination. You don't have to know how to figure it out. I didn't know how to figure it out, right? But when the question is big enough, the answer will appear. So my question was, how do I help this family? And then I'm on TikTok and there's Tim doing something. And I'm like, oh, maybe I can message him, right? So it all comes together, right? You got to be humble enough to ask for help, right? Because
Yeah.
I could very much been like, oh, I'm 12 years in the game. I shouldn't have to ask somebody on TikTok questions.
Right.
Right?
Failing forward.
Yeah, it's failing forward. It's like,
Yep.
hey, and then coming from abundance, right? Because Tim could have been like, who are you? TikTok, right? So much of it.
Some people are like that.
And some people are like that. And that's not your teacher, right?
Right.
And that's okay. And once you realize it's all okay, like that's not my teacher. Keep going, keep asking questions. The better your questions, the better you'll be. Right?
Right.
Ask better questions. Ask, I tell people it's your fault. Ask better questions.
100%.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, we're just about the end here. It's been an awesome conversation. Why don't you tell the audience, like, how do we reach you? Like, what do you, if anybody's interested or anybody's an agent, whatnot, how can we get a hold of Chase?
Absolutely. So I'm everywhere where internets are sold. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Chase_Sloan. The business is the Chasing Real Estate Group. So go ahead and show love over there. And my link is in the bio. And so click the link, send a text, shoot a DM. I'm always here to help. Tim asked my bio and I told him, I was like, can I just say realtor, investor, and friend? Because that's the DNA what it's all about. And I'm not on this call to make it seem like I've got it all figured out. I've just learned a couple things along the way, and I'm always happy to share that. And of course, if you're in Houston and you're ready to build wealth, let's talk. Let's get it.
I love it. I'm hearing Houston is the next kind of, it's already happening.
People in Houston are mad about it. I'm like, y'all can keep sleeping if you want to, but we something, we won a World Series and all kind of stuff.
I know.
We got great brunch.
I hear that's one thing I did not experience
we didn't
the last
experience
time
that,
we went there, but we may have to next time. We'll hit you up. Get some
we will.
mimosas or something.
I'll leave you guys with this last piece of advice. If you come to Houston, leave on Monday. Because our Sunday fun day is the bomb.
Okay.
Mess up every time.
What? You're right.
They leave on Sunday. Yeah.
You're right. I left on the Sunday. Left on the Sunday. I should have known.
Then you're mad at yourself on the way home because you're looking at the plate and you're like seeing everybody having fun. So if you come to Houston, leave on a Monday. Have fun with us. Sunday's
Facts.
Hey, that's
I'm there.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having me today. It's been awesome.
No, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you. This has been awesome. And I hope everybody on here, everybody listening on later gets so much out of it. Please reach out to Chase_Sloan. We'll also provide her links in our bio below as well. But
absolutely.
Guys, it's Thanksgiving tomorrow. Can you believe it? What are your Thanksgiving plans, Chase?
My gosh. So last year I made macaroni and cheese and it was a hit. And I waited till the last minute to go get the noodles. And so the store was out. Somehow, even with me saying, don't wait till the last minute to get the noodles, I have done that. So I'm going to see if I can go find some noodles and then I'm going to cook my macaroni and cheese. And then we'll be in Austin for the holidays just with family.
Oh, nice.
Love it. Oh, you got a pup.
Oh, you got a little puppy.
Yeah. Legend wanted to say hey. So he heard about Thanksgiving. He's excited about it, but it'll all be family. That's it.
I love it. That's what it's all about. Well, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody on here. We're super grateful for all your support. But you'll catch us here next week. Should be an awesome topic and conversation. But take care. Have a great rest of your week and talk to y'all later.
Awesome.
All right.
See you guys later.
Peace.